Hello, welcome back for more Commodore 128 hackery and weird things. So today we got to put the D back in the D. I had evacuated the 1571 from this machine to make room for some of the other mods I did, but I want a disk drive back in here, and there's plenty of room inside the case. So we have a SD card extension thing, a 1306 OLED, a KY040 encoder, one of our little boards that I designed that I showed you last time, little interface thing for the IEC bus, and of course Raspberry Pi. So we're going to use a 02W. Don't mind what's written on the bag. Let's use a 02W. The regular zeros kind of suck for performance, and you'll have problems in 1581 mode in certain circumstances with the zero. At least I did. So let's figure out how to jam all this stuff in the computer and have ourselves a disk drive again. All right, here we are inside the 128D, and there's a lot going on, but we'll get there. So, since last time, a quick update, right? There is now a SIDFX in here since the last time you guys had seen this machine, and this is, I believe, the last SIDFX that was ever made. I got an email from the guy who makes these, and his name escapes me right now, but he's a really cool guy. I've emailed back and forth with him over the years. He is no longer making these boards. He put out an email to previous customers saying, hey, we're not going to make them anymore. Whatever's in inventory is in inventory, and that's that. So I logged in, and I tried to buy 2 of these boards, and it told me no. So I changed my quantity to 1, and it told me yes. So this was the last SIDFX to be ordered, I'm quite confident of, which is awesome because I got another SIDFX, but I'm sad to say that these won't be made anymore, because these things are friggin' awesome. The quality that comes out of them is great. The functionality for going through different modes and whatever is wonderful. So anyway, 60-second digression there. But yeah, has a SIDFX now. Everything goes out the back into a little tape cart 3D printed cover thing that I drilled some holes in and put the jack and the switches in there. So that's pretty neat. Of course, this one has the overclock Z80 and the 2 MMUs and all the other stuff going on in here that largely will not play a part in this. So we are most concerned with getting the Pi and junk installed in here today. So let's see. I've already taken the liberty of installing a couple of items, kind of, sort of, just because it was boring, uneventful stuff. Let's see if we can get a good shot. So I had to remove the 1571 out of this machine because of the MMU and the Z80 and all this stuff in here. In order to get this to fit, I couldn't have the 1571 in here anymore. So let's see if we can lift and slide that up. So this is now the front of our case where there used to be a 1571, obviously. And there's our little OLED screen, the 1306 OLED. It is mounted right side up this time, so win for us there. And the rotary encoder fits perfectly in what used to be the drive mech lever for the 1571. And then I have one of these SD card extension cables in here. This one has an enormously long cable on it that I'll probably swap out for a shorter cable, but this I didn't think was, worthy of filming. This is just adding some DuPont cables onto the back of it, and this has a little bit of double-sided tape, and this has a nut and bolt, so not rocket science. So we have DuPonts for each of these devices that will land right here quite easily. So I think this will be a good spot where we will plant our Pi. And what I'll probably do to keep things as hardwired as possible, the DuPonts get a little, I have a love-hate relationship with them. We'll just leave it at that. So I'm going to put Pinheaders on for this stuff, because if you ever have to remove the front panel, you'd be able to unplug this from the bottom. The actual Pi to the interface board, I think I'm going to hardwire this, because there again, if I ever have to separate this component from the main board, you can unplug this right off of the main board, right? So I think I'm just going to use, just strands of wire. I'll probably hack open a Cat5 cable and steal the conductors out of there, and we will use that to wire this into that. So I think that's our plan. Really didn't have one going in. I usually don't have a plan, so it's kind of odd to be making one. So yeah, I think that's the first thing we'll do is get these two guys wired together, and then we can plug in some stuff, and we ought to have a drive. So yeah, let me go find spool o wire, some soldering things, and we will mate these guys permanently till death do them part. Okay, I did some things and took some notes, which is amazing because I usually don't plan or take notes. So we're going to hardwire some things and use pin headers for some things to connect to the Pi. So we'll run down the list and I'll show you what I did so far to prep. The OLED obviously needs power and ground, and then there are two signal wires coming from that, and that goes to pins 1, 3, 5, and 9, which is great because they're all right in a row on the Pi, on the odd-numbered side, right? So that'll make things easy. Similar-ish for the encoder, we have 13 and 15, and then we have to go to 16 next to it, so we got a little creative, made a little pluggy for that. And the drive LED I haven't done anything with yet. I'm going to have to dig up a resistor and rig that in line because I don't want to blow anything up. I think these old LEDs in this would probably draw more current than the microcontroller and the Pi would be happy with. And yeah, so we'll get creative with that if we have to, but I think I can just direct wire with a resistor and go on. We'll play with that later. For power, we're going to take the mini USB connector from the Pi and plug it into the main board. So I hacked up an old phone charger cable for that. Found it in the parts bin, and then the I/O stuff is going to be direct wired like we talked about. So this is pretty obvious. Pin 11 is OUTCLK. I used a blue wire, and it goes to our little breakout board. So enough of that. Let's find the camera view, and I'll show you what this looks like in practice. Where's the cam? That one. There we go. All right. So let's see, do we have a good viewing angle? And let's find our Pi. So the Pi winds up looking like this. I use different color-coded pin headers, right? You know, we have these 3 red ones. There we go. The 3 red ones are 2 5-volt pins and a ground pin. Then our rotary encoder, or I'm sorry, the OLED gets hooked up to the yellows. The rotary encoder goes down to the blues. You know, the power from the encoder is coming from the reds, but it will get its signal from these 3 blue pins there. And then these 2 green ones down the end there are... Can we see that? There we go. Focus. Those green ones are going to be for the drive LED if I get around to doing that. And then this is the innards of a Cat5 cable that I hacked apart, and we just direct wired all the appropriate signals there. I don't think we need to go through every single one of them. I'll put it in a list in the description so you can use that as a reference or something. So should be able, here, let's roll back here. If we just plug that in there and stick this up here and then plug in our little pluggies, I think we're done, right? Hopefully, maybe. About the pluggies, to make life a little easier there, I kind of made them into little harnesses. So this is for the OLED, and there you can see a little bit of crazy glue residue, but this will be the OLED hookup, and I needed a blank in the middle because it's pins 1, 3, 5, and 9, so this ought to just boop right in. These guys I had to crazy glue into a triangle-ish thing, which was fun, but you know, the way I do that is pretty easy. I have a sacrificial strip of pins. I put the pins I want on there, glue them, put the other pins I want, stick it in, glue it again. It's done, right? So hopefully this will be easy to just plug in and out, and it'll be somewhat color-coded so I'll know where they're supposed to go instead of having to fiddle around with individual ones of these that like to fall off and all that dumb stuff. So that's really that for now, and I haven't taken this out yet. I'm going to put the shorty in. So let me go find the shorter ones of these, and we'll start plugging things in. Alright, well that was fun, but it fits. So there is a tiny little gap between these. So I actually did measure some things when I designed this little board. I wanted it to be big enough, but small enough, you know? So anyway, it's in there, kind of wrap this stuff around, and here we'll come up to the front here, and so there's our Pi. I cut this at 60 centimeters. I actually did measure the wire when I cut it too. So this is 60 centimeters of wire from the back to the front. I figured that would give me a little room for shenanigans. I could always cut and trim if I need to, but I think I nailed it pretty good as far as length goes. So before I sticky tape him down, I want to make sure everything works. So our power is just, oh here, I don't think we talked about that so much, but the power is just coming off right where the switch would have been, right? There's your hot, and ground can come from all over the place, but that was a convenient place to get it right there. So yeah, we'll have power fed into the Pi properly and not just through the header. I'm not sure about the architecture on this, but I think it goes through some kind of regulation. So when you backfeed through here, you know, if you backfeed through the 5-volt pin on the end there, you could have a problem if you overvolt, whereas there's a little tolerance if you come in the USB connector. So we have that done-ish. So now we can start plugging things into him, right? If I did my harness as well and did not get crazy glue inside of the ends, done that before, this should just plug on, right? So ground was at pin 9, and the white is our power at pin 1. Yeah, look at that, plugs in. That is friggin' solid too. These things work so much better when they're joined together. When you just have little fiddly onesie twosies of them, not so good. Alright, that's our OLED. So this is our rotary encoder harness, for lack of a better term. But pins 2 and 4 are hot, and pin number 6 is ground, right? So that should be good. And then this little guy that I used copious amounts of glue on. Actually, I didn't. I was pretty good with the glue. But that should only go on one way now. So I really hope they're in the right order. And yeah, that went on quite well. So we'll play with the LED later, but that's it. It's plugged in. I wonder if it works. I gotta grab a power cord and stuff. Let me get some power plugged into this, and we'll see if we get anything on the front panel. Alright, I've connected an SD card. Almost forgot to put the little reader thingy on there. I borrowed a pre-configured card out of one of my standalone Pi1541s. And let's make sure nothing's touching that shouldn't be. I'm gonna turn it on. I really hope for the best here. Bring the thunder, as Derek would say. Is it on? I don't see any smoke. The fan's running. So, you know, that's good. But I got nothing on the OLED. Not that you can see it. Take my word for it, the OLED's dark. We're broke-ded. Well, crap. Alright, we gotta get a meter and poke around. Alright, well, I had a dinner break and I thought about things and realized that I'm stupid. And the SD card I stole came out of a Pi 3B Plus based Pi1541, not a Pi 0. So, different kernel, it will not boot. So, whipped up a new card, have the proper kernel on it. I basically just cloned the other card, and yeah, here we go. Alright. It started, the computer didn't, but like I said, it does that sometimes. Alright, there we go. It came up, booted, ready prompt. So we should be able to pick a disk. Just pick anything at this point. Here, it said burners. Sweet. We have data. Means my Cat 5 works. I was a little worried about how I have things twisted together, but it's such a slow protocol that I don't think it matters. I have like clock and data on the same twisted pair. That would be a terrible thing to do if you were engineering a proper circuit, but there's nothing proper about this. So let's just make sure we can load a thing. Oh, caps lock. Yeah, it's working. Yay! I don't have any speakers hooked up, though. Maybe? Come on. Yeah, I'm sure it'll come up. So, anyway, yeah, it booted. So, I gotta clean up this mess here. I'll stick him down somewhere, tidy up the wires, but this thing's done. So, that's all good. It's getting late, though, so part 2, it'll have to be another part, is gonna be this. We're gonna put one of these and one of those on the IEC bus as well, because we need more meat in our box. Alright, I gotta go. It's late, but next time we will be adding a meatloaf to this bad boy. So, anyway, if you don't know what the meatloaf is, it's an SD to IEC / modem / everything. It's friggin' awesome. So we'll play with that and see what kind of mischief we can get into. Anyway, it's bedtime. Take care, everybody. We'll see you later.